Hey everyone, happy to be here. We have Roma playing against Cremonese this Tuesday. It's time to look at these teams, who will be the probable lineups, who's in, who's out, some great statistics, as well as what's happening. Roma Femminile take first in Serie A right now. Let's look a little bit deeper into them. What's Jose Mourinho up to these days? Who did Roma draw in the Europa League quarterfinals? As well as some ins and outs of the club during this week.
If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Thanks.
All right, so Roma Femminile just played their 100th match in their history. On top of that, they've already won the Coppa Italia, been in the Supercoppa. They have qualified for the Champions League, which they're still in right now, actually, and they just beat Sampdoria 0-1 away. Okay, did you know that almost half of all female professional players in Italy have earned a degree or are studying to get one? In fact, 25% already graduated and over 20% are attending a course at the university on top of their playing. So one thing that I really want to bring more of is info on these Femminile players. Who are they? A little about them. Like, look at this stat that I just read out, right? That they're studying. They're doing different things. So this is a luxury that many players do not have, right? To be able to go in and have to do two fronts. You have to be a professional, but you also have to plan on, the possibility that one day you won't be a professional and the amount of money that you are able to make. So that's really interesting to me. I want to know about their stories and who they are, because I think this is it's past emerging with women's soccer. It's women's football. It's my American coming out. But it's definitely something which needs to be, I think, celebrated a bit more, perhaps in the way that men's football is, where you have stars. You have to kind of like shed light on who the main goal scorers are. Who is the capocannoniere in Serie A Femminile? Who's the leading goal scorer? Who's the veteran? Like, those are the stories I think that need to be told. And I'm very interested in them. So I think that this can be really big in Italy. Not in just the sense like selling out Tre Fontane and winning the Serie A, but for what it means, because not every society is so in sync with providing females with like education and footballing. Well, not so much education, but more like a sporting culture to them. In the United States has been very much so for the past 15, 20, 30 years. There's been so much stress on it, but I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, there's major ground that could be made in Western Europe too. And it's an area that I want to see explode, because you're talking about 50% of the population who needs their own stars and their own female players and people to look up to. That's very important for them. On top of that, we got Cremonese coming. We have this new mural you could see here of Dybala. This is done by his youth team that he grew up with in Argentina. And that's just so cool to look at it, like his picture-perfect moment from the World Cup. And that's been so good for him, his confidence. And he came back, started this season like on fire. World Cup happens, and he goes out to injury, doesn't play too much. But now he's been back, and since he's been in 2023, Dybala has been lights out good. He is somebody who I hope stays with this team a very long time. If it's me, I have the conversation with him about giving him the number 10 jersey at this point, extending him to 3, perhaps even a 4-year contract. Play your best games with Roma, and then we'll see what happens from there. I've also got some stats heading into Cremonese-Roma here. We see that Roma has the lowest XG, expected goals, in Serie A with 16.4, although they have conceded 19 times, which makes them third in fewest goals allowed. But that XG is a very good sign. That's saying that if your XG is really low, it's essentially saying that those goals shouldn't have happened, right? If you see a difference there, 19 versus 16, perhaps they got lucky. There was a keeper error, some type of error. Perhaps a shot came out from a really tight angle where they weren't expected to score. So XG is kind of like this ever-evolving metric in football stats. But it is a great sign. First in the league for lowest XG there is really cool. And to give you reference here, the team with the fewest amount of goals is Napoli in second with 20, and Juventus just 15 conceded so far this season. That's crazy stuff there. Smalling is the second most minutes played of any outfield player in Serie A, only behind Di Lorenzo. So it's not including keepers, but for everybody else, Smalling is the ever-present guy. If you remember last year, there were some bad losses against like Bodo Glimt, Verona, Lazio, Venezia as well. And guess who wasn't playing in those games? Chris Smalling. So when Roma come up against this one, it's going to have to be a proving ground. Can you do it without Chris? Can you stay stable without this veteran he's had this renaissance to his career, and he's become one of Italy's most important players, most important in the league. And as I'm just looking at a little bit about the stats as well, second best Roma in just 10.1 conceded shots per match. So him being at the forefront, he's a big reason why that is so low. 10.1, as that's not on goal. That's just total what a team is able to get off. So impressive stuff from Chris, but also shout out to Mancini and Ibanez, who've been great this year. But I really think that Mancini has evolved into a leader on the pitch. He was getting, I think, a little bit hard pressed on social media the other day, and because of his attitude and like screaming at the other players. No, that's what I want. I want that boss. I want that guy who's not afraid to get in the other team's face and stick up for his guys. So I really like what I have seen from Gianluca this season. It's awesome. Thought their game against Red Bull Salzburg was great, guys. No, we didn't get to touch base on that yet. But perhaps Roma's best one of the season, Spinazzola, lights out. I was very surprised with how quickly he restarted after that injury. I was expecting for him to be out until about the middle of March, so even a few weeks from now. But he gets that early re-entrance, and he looks, honestly, the best he has all season. I had some concerns about if he could still do it, if he still had that agility after his ACL tear, because those are very tricky, and they're tough on players who are, over the age of like 23. He looked so good. He was able to take out those very young wingbacks that Salzburg has, or outside backs, and his quality was unable to be matched. He gets that pass off to Dybala, who does phenomenal to hit that off the volley. And Roma played overall really good. The Cristante even getting forward, I liked seeing that of him. Pellegrini looked refreshed, honestly, and overall it was a really good team win. I think it's the better team. I think Red Bull Salzburg got lucky in Austria when we played them. And now we come up against a tricky opponent in Real Sociedad. Not too sure without doing my research yet about what to expect from them, but closer to next week, I'll definitely have a preview and a deep dive into what that club is doing, who they are, who their key players are, and a little bit more on that. Another concern is the state of the Stadio Olimpico. How is it going to look? Let's look at this. March 5th, Roma-Juventus. March 7th, Lazio versus Alkmaar. March 9th, Roma-Real Sociedad. March 11th, Italy plays Wales in rugby. Yeah, rugby. You know how that's going to be on a grass pitch? March 12th, Roma plays Sassuolo. What is going to happen here? I hope it doesn't look like a landmines after all is said and done. The poor Olimpico. I'm thinking about like some other matches that Roma have played this season, or even other Serie A matches, which just look... I think we need to take better care of them, and it's just one reiterating thought as to why Italian teams all need their own private stadiums. With the comeback against Torino last weekend, Cremonese actually tied the longest winless record in Serie A, 30 games, and that was set by Ancona over 20 years ago. I think that the Roma we're going to see is very different from the one that lost in the Coppa Italia. I think they're going to be hungry. They're going to play without the reins on them. They're not going to feel like they're confined because they have a Serie A match quickly coming up or something that's super important for them. Because let's not hide the fact that the hunt is on for fourth, right? So I think that the mental approach is going to be different from what we saw against the Coppa Italia. Let's look at Cremonese's form recently. Draw, loss, draw, loss in Serie A. Roma, win, draw, win, loss, win. So, Roma can get back into second, guys. They can go in and show up big against a team that they've had some problems against in the Coppa, and I think prove a lot with this one. And it's, once again, this is Cremonese. It's not a great team, but they will fight. And one thing that this February has been all about is getting maximum points where you can. It's been relatively easy. Juventus is coming up. The Derby is coming up. So this becomes, in my opinion, a must-win. And when it comes against Cremonese, they're not like Lecce. And they don't have the quality, I think, that, they have Dessers and Okereke and Felix Gian. But I think that Roma's quality should really outweigh them. I think even without Chris Smalling, that Roma is the much better team. Looking forward to see Wijnaldum perhaps even get the start in this one. We saw him get 10 minutes versus Salzburg, but I'm really want to see him in there. And even as I'm looking at Sports Mo's possible starting lineup here, Wijnaldum is the possible pick here, along with Cristante. And then you have backline Mancini, Kumbulla, Ibanez. I agree with that. Karsdorp, Wijnaldum, Cristante, Zalewski. Karsdorp, I don't know about. Could Salik get the nod? Has Karsdorp done enough yet to prove that he's going to be a starter, or has Salik? So I think that position is still very open right now. I don't think either player, forget about Rick's problems during the new year, but just from a technical standpoint, I don't think any player has claimed that spot as his, as the dominant, go to, oh yeah, he's surely starting. No, I don't think that's the case here. But Wijnaldum, Cristante in the middle, I would like to see that. I always feel that Pellegrini plays better from a deeper role where he can pick out passes and initiate the counter. But this prediction looks like Pellegrini, Shaarawy, Abraham. Abraham should be getting a limited mask, a little bit more, not exposure, but more visibility for him, if any mask at all, as he recovers from his eye injury. And I wouldn't even doubt, though, if Belotti gets a start, but El Shaarawy for sure at this point. He's become the guy in the Trident, not flashy, but just gets the job done. Hard worker, gets behind the lines, and makes it happen. I love El Shaarawy very much, I have to say. True team player, that guy. But back to Wijnaldum, Cristante. Could we see Matic re-enter the frame? Perhaps. I do think Matic does need the rest. I think that he's perhaps suffering from some fatigue throughout this season, as it's been long. He's played a lot of games, probably more than he's expected to. But Zalewski, definitely he'll get the start. And Pellegrini, does he after midweek? It's tough to say, but I agree with Sportmole here, because I don't see Solbakken getting into the starting lineup again yet. I could definitely see him as a sub. And probably Belotti too, if Abraham is 100% and he feels good. So the only change I would make here is I'm not sure if Wijnaldum gets the start. I think you're more likely to see Cristante with Matic. You could see a possible lineup for Cremonese similar to what they put out in the Coppa Italia in the back line. Ferrari, Bianchetti, Vasquez, and then Sernicola, Benassi, Pickel, and Meite, and then Valeri. So a 3-5-2 with Tsadjout and Okereke ahead of him. I don't find these players notable or really all that great. I think they will put up a fight, though. These guys are definitely playing to stay in Serie A, playing for contracts with different teams. And also, even somebody like Dessers. He's been involved in 3 of Cremonese's 5 home goals this season. Yes, they've only scored 5 home goals, but even him, he's an international player, and he's going to look to go out there and prove himself worthy of staying in a top-flight football. So while these games are never easy, you will come up against these players who want to put on a show. Roma's going to take this one. I'm confident. I like the way they've been playing. I've always stressed the fact that projects need time, and managers sometimes are only as good as the players that they have. Now, the flip side of that is managers are paid to figure out and provide solutions. And I think that Mourinho has perhaps struggled with that when he looks at his depth, and Roma has been a bit reliant on players like Chris Smalling or Dybala, and when we're there without them, it has posed issues for the Giallorossi this season. But now, with a full lineup, I think you're seeing where Mourinho excels is in playing super precise, compact, deadly football. And that's what I'm looking forward to against Cremonese. I like the fact that I think Roma will possess more than they typically do. Even though it's contrary to what Jose usually wants of his team, I like when Roma possess. I like when they get players up the pitch. And that's sometimes contrary to the players we have, but I think that they're good at it. And I think even Selig and Zalewski loves bombing forward. He loves getting between and even off the last man as he comes from a wing-back position. It's really, a wing-back today was an outside midfielder 15 years ago, which is a funny thing about tactics. But I'm expecting big things. Let me know what you think. Give this video a like and a comment. I absolutely want to know who you think the probable lineup is going to be, what you're feeling about Roma right now, and all that good stuff. We'll talk after the match for sure.